Super Rugby round 18, the dream team, so the final regular season round. Um, yeah, it's going to be the last, I guess, truly tough week because once we get to the finals, the number of games is limited, so there are fewer good performers in each position just because there are fewer games on. And there were a whole lot of hidings this week. Teams getting beaten by very big score lines, so it has been a tough pick, but I've made some picks. As always, you guys let me know your thoughts at the end. But let's go through them. First one, I've gone with one of the Sharks players. I've gone with Mzamo Majola. He was a late call up to that Sharks side. Correct me on his pronunciation for his name if that's not correct. But yeah, he filled in for the Beast. And I thought he had a really good game. He seemed to be everywhere from when I watched the game. He had 9 runs, which for a prop is getting busy. 10 meters, so about the appropriate meterage per run. He beat a defender, had 6 passes, made 11 out of 11 tackles, so was one of the top performers in that area as well, and didn't concede any penalties, so pretty stable at scrum time. So I thought very good effort from a guy who was kind of called up to start pretty late in the piece. Also, I've gone with another South African proper, Lizo Gaboka from the Bulls. He is one of my favorite props at the moment. I do enjoy seeing him play. One of the joys this season of a pretty joyless Blues season was to see him at Eden Park running. I think he ran at least a good 8 or 9 meters before anybody caught him. And that was a great thing to see in person rather than just on camera. 5 runs, 9 meters is low for him, but decent for a prop. 4 passes, 6 from 6 tackles. Also managed the try. You gotta love it when props get tries. Also did not concede any penalties, so very solid throughout. Hooker, I have gone from the Jaguares. I've gone with Julian Montoya. He is probably one of the best backups that any team has got in Super Rugby, and he had a very good outing against the Sunwolves. 4 runs for 24 meters is a very good return. He managed the try. At least probably 10 of those meters would have been his try off the back of a maul, where he just detached and just went for the line and got there. Had 2 defenders beaten, 2 clean breaks, 14 out of 14 tackles. Line out was at 100%, so a stellar outing for him. If there is a black mark, it's that he conceded 3 penalties, but aside from that, very solid all round. Locks, I've gone with Rory Arnold from the Brumbies. He has been very consistent as well. Australian rugby is going to miss him when he departs offshore at the end of the season. 5 runs for 7 meters is not all that stellar. He had 6 passes in there as well. It says he only beat 1 defender, but when he scored his try, he went through, I think, 3 or 4 people. He may not have beaten them because they were still kind of attached to him as he fell over the line, but he had to at least push them back enough to get to the line, and he managed that with his try. So it was a very good try. 7 from 7 tackles, 4 line-out wins, and a line-out steal as well. So one of the best locks in Super Rugby for sure. Other lock, I've gone with Kane Laupepe from the Hurricanes. He and Wakaliawere had a pretty good game. It was hard to pick Hurricanes and Blues players this week because that was such a game of 2 halves, and it's hard when your team only plays good for half the game. Like most of the Hurricanes guys who started have very bad tackle stats, and I will touch on some of them at the end. But Laupepe had 8 runs for 13 meters, which for a lock again is very, very good work. Hardworking. 14 out of 16 tackles, so one of the better guys who started the game, and also the Canes' top tackler for that game, so impressive. Also had 3 line-out wins. So I thought for an area where I thought the Canes were going to struggle this year, they've actually done remarkably well in the second row. Loose forwards was probably the hardest area to pick this week. From the Chiefs, I have gone with Lachlan Boshier. He had a pretty stellar outing. 3 runs for 18 meters. Beat a defender, had a clean break. He also had a pass, just the one. He prefers to put his head down. He had a try, and he also had a try assist. According to ESPN, Rugby Pass doesn't give him a try assist, but I'm going to go with the try assist. So 1 pass, 1 try assist, 100% success rate there, and 9 out of 10 tackles. So very good outing from him. That's becoming kind of normal for him as well. Next one from the Jaguares, I've gone with Thomas Lozana. This guy, I mean, I didn't catch this game in full. I watched the start of it, went to my kids' swimming lessons and watched the end of it, plus I watched the highlights for the rest. But from what I saw of the game live, definitely he was everywhere. 10 runs for 61 metres for a loose forward is phenomenal. 2 clean breaks, a defender beaten, 7 passes, also had a try assist and 8 from 8 tackles, 100% success. The guy was busy in a much changed team. He was putting in a big effort to say that he should be starting week in, week out. And lastly, I've gone with Hunter Liebenberg from the Bulls. Kind of obvious why I went for him. There's one particular stat that looks good on his record anyway. 6 runs for 8 metres, but somehow managed 2 tries from there. I guess that's that Bulls pack going forward. 1 defender beaten, 6 out of 7 tackles. And like you look at a lot of the other Bulls loose forwards, and you could have chosen them as well. But he's the only one who didn't concede any penalties. So, yeah, I guess good to keep that record clean. Scrum half, I've gone with Brad Weber from the Chiefs. He had a phenomenal game. Although it's kind of a curious one because it depends which site you read. Like, I had to double check because Rugby Pass has got him at 2 runs. Was it 2 runs? 2 runs for 1 metre. I thought that doesn't sound right. ESPN has him at 9 runs for 66 metres, which sounds like the game I watched. So I'm not sure what's going on with Rugby Pass's stats there. I used to use ESPN exclusively, but they don't have a full range of stats like turnovers, line-out wins. Like there's some stuff they don't do. But their stats for like the bare bones stuff, like running, defenders beaten, seems to make more sense, at least from that game. 65 passes, a try assist, 3 out of 3 tackles, and a turnover. The guy's having perhaps the season of his life, and he's one of the reasons that the Chiefs managed to get to the playoffs despite a pretty bad start to their season. Next, fly half. I've gone with Andre Pollard from the Bulls. He is another guy who's pretty key to their season going the way it has. They've made the playoffs, so big part in that. He had 6 runs for 13 metres, 17 passes, 2 try assists, so that's kind of a shadow 10 points. Scored a try of his own, had 5 conversions, a penalty goal. So he scored 18 points personally and then had a hand in 10 of the others. So you can kind of chalk him up for 28 points in that game. 1 black mark, I suppose, as he tackled at 3 out of 6. So kind of 50-50, which is not ideal. He would, by his own standards, want a bit higher than that. But overall, man, the guy was pulling the strings of that Bulls outfit. Then ended up getting a pretty big win over there in Pretoria. Next, from the Chiefs, a lot of Chiefs here. I've gone with ALB, lienert-brown from the Chiefs here. 18 runs for 114 metres. Very solid, more than solid effort. 4 clean breaks, 8 defenders beaten, which is phenomenal. 4 passes, including 2 offloads. Also managed the try, in which he showed some genuine gas. And 5 out of 6 tackles is good enough. Another Kiwi here. I've gone with Rob Thompson, 2nd week in a row for him. He had 11 runs for 57 metres, 2 defenders beaten and 2 clean breaks. Also managed a try in which he pretty much just ghosted half of the Waratahs team. He was kind of running sideways and then just straightened and was straight through. Had a pass, just the 1 pass, which I guess if you're looking at the overall stats, it'd be nice to have a bit of a balance rather than just always running it because it becomes predictable. But hey, I'm not complaining because they got a huge win and made the playoffs. 10 out of 10 tackles, and like I said, got a try, so good effort from him. Outside backs, I've gone with Sebastian Cancellieri from the Hug Warriors for his effort. His effort was very, very, very good. I'm kind of used to having that back 3 of Boffelli, Mojano, and Delgui, but like this game was Carreras and Cancellieri on the wings, and they didn't look any lesser the team. They looked just as good. 9 runs for 169 run meters, 5 clean breaks, crazy stuff. 3 defenders beaten, had a pass in which he got 1 try assist. He had 2 tries of his own, 7 out of 8 tackles. Again, if I had to look at a black mark, he's got 4 turnovers conceded, which is not ideal, but yeah, the guy had a pretty good game. So he is a welcome addition there. Next, from the Sharks, I've gone with Reno Smith. He came on pretty early because Mapimpi got injured and he had a pretty good outing. 12 runs for 140 meters. Remember, this game only had what was it, 12-9? Very few points scored, but he was racking up the run meters. 2 clean breaks, a defender beaten, 9 passes and an offload. He didn't have to make any tackles, which is interesting, but he's credited with a turnover, and he had a try and a try assist. I haven't written that down, but that's from memory. Yes, he did have the try because it had bounced off his ankles and he went length of the field. And yeah, he did have a clash with Nkosi at one point. There was like a ball coming down and they both went for it. So again, a black mark on the game is that they could have wrapped that one up a bit better, but it wasn't to be. Otherwise, still, Virgo came on. Thought he did pretty well. Lastly, from the Chiefs, it's hard for me to leave him out. Sean Stevenson, he had... Well, again, ESPN gives him 13 runs for 161 meters, which sounds about right because Rugby Pass had him like 20-odd meters from memory. So, yeah. 5 defenders beaten, 5 clean breaks. This guy was just cutting swathes through the Rebels. 3 tries and a try assist. Black mark, 2 out of 4 tackles is not great, and 3 turnovers conceded, but still, man. The guy had a pretty good game, even if he does have a silly try celebration for mine. I will not go without mentioning some of the other guys because, I mean, I think I've only got 1 Highlander, 1 Hurricane, and 1 Brumby, despite the fact that all those teams got big wins. So, I mean, Franklin could easily be there. Aaron Smith had a good game. Umaga Jensen for the Hurricanes, you might think because he got 2 tries, but I checked his tackle stats. 4 tackles made, 6 tackles missed. Like, I can handle kind of 50-50, but this is getting like 6 tackles missed. It's pretty bad. Fletcher Smith came on and had a blinder. I mean, outside backs were also pretty tough this week. Evans with his turnovers for the Hurricanes as well. Even Ezekiel Lindemuth for the Blues as a prop who had like 18 tackles, which is a phenomenal game. But the Blues made me mad, so I couldn't pick any Blues again. Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts on the Dream Team. Who else would you have had in? And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.